So, A Fistful of Dollars is the first film in Sergio Leone's Dollar Trilogy, and some consider it the best of the three films. Now, while I don't think it's the best of the trilogy, I can't deny that it is in fact a great film. My favourite part of the movie is definitely the music. I think this might be Ennio Morricone's third best score for a movie, behind Once Upon a Time in the West and The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. The music also helps to create suspense in certain shootouts, particularly the climactic final duel. I am actually a bit mixed on the action in the movie though, as I think in the first half a lot of the action feels kind of stiff, and it seems like when the shot was fired and when the person gets hit, don't really line up. Could just be an editing problem, but I think with the exception of Ramon's first fight scene, the action in the first half is pretty underwhelming. The second half though, that was awesome. I mean, the final shootout alone is pretty much perfect in my opinion. So yeah, the action is for the most part pretty mixed. What about the plot? If you ask me, unlike most westerns, I will actually say the plot is probably the best part of the film here. So as some of you might know, this is a remake of the Kurosawa film Yojimbo, which actually came out only 3 years before this was made. And I think this might actually be one of the first times a foreign language film was remade as an American movie. And while it certainly wasn't the last, it was probably the best. I mean, The Magnificent Seven is pretty good, but I mean, who likes Old Boy? Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson. And man, I'm so excited for Last Train to New York. But anyway, the plot here is practically the same as Yojimbo's, but in a different setting. There are a few character changes. For instance, Inokichi's counterpart here is not really played for comic relief as much as he is in Yojimbo. He can actually hold his own in the fight here and doesn't just rely on his brother's strength like in Yojimbo. But other than some other smaller character changes and plot changes, it's very much so like Yojimbo in a western setting. And since Yojimbo has a great plot, this does too. Especially on rewatch, it seems like everything falls into place very naturally. Our main character's plan isn't that insanely complicated or anything, and he does have to change it with the situation. I do think Yojimbo is a better movie overall. I do like how the plot is presented here a bit more. We only spend as much time as we need to with the Baxters, just enough to establish our goals and hatred for the Rojos too. And because we spend less time with the Baxters, it means we get to spend more time with the Rojos, and therefore the film can make them into real villains. Whereas in Yojimbo, well, they certainly did feel threatening as a collective, with the notable exception of Unosuke. They didn't feel that particularly threatening individually. In A Fistful of Dollars, you know that if you angered even one of these three brothers, you probably won't be getting out of that situation alive. Also, I have to commend this film's lack of plot holes. I tried really hard to find some on rewatch, and the only one I could find is how Ramon says he wants our main character alive, but then later in the finale, he doesn't hesitate to shoot him in the heart. But if that's the only real issue with the plot, a tiny nitpick like that, I think it's fair to say the movie's plot is pretty much perfectly constructed. Moving on to the acting, I think Clint Eastwood and Gian Maria Volonté, if I'm saying that right, are both great here, but the rest of the acting is made somewhat worse with the dubbing. I mean, the dubbing might actually be the worst part of the film, if I'm being honest. It does somewhat improve by the time The Good, the Bad and the Ugly comes around, but here it's very noticeable, particularly with the child actor. Like, sometimes here, he'll just very clearly just have his mouth open, not moving, and then they will just put lines said by someone else over that, and it's quite distracting in the final product. But I think the acting, for the most part, is pretty good here. Cinematography is also fairly good. In terms of Leone's westerns, this and for a few dollars more have always seemed like they have a similar quality of cinematography, and then it's significantly improved in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and improved even more so in Once Upon a Time in the West. But the cinematography here is still pretty great. I really like all the wide shots in the film, as well as the slow zooms, which happen a lot in the finale. Shot composition is very akin to Kurosawa, and the movie has a very kind of beige colour tone for the most part. There's a very good wide shot in the opening in particular, which zooms out from our main character until we can see practically the entire town. Very well done if you ask me. The lighting here is very low-key and high contrast. There's a lot of use of shadows here as well, and occasionally we'll use reflections to show us what's happening on screen. Also, the characters here are fairly well written. The man with no name is pretty much just Clint Eastwood playing Clint Eastwood, but I don't know, what else do you really want from a film like this? I really like Ramon here. In fact, I think he's a better villain than Angel Eyes in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, although he's still not as good as Frank in Once Upon a Time in the West. So overall, I thought this was a very fun, very well written western that benefits from a great score and villain, and so I'm going to give A Fistful of Dollars a well-deserved 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. I might come back and do for a few dollars more on The Good, the Bad and the Ugly sometime soon. I'd like to do some more western reviews, and if you have any more western recommendations, feel free to leave them in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.